everybody, and welcome to a second episode in the new season of Writer's Block with Miriam. Now, last episode was the TV producer Siobhan Daniels. She's a campaigner against ageism. This episode, I'm delighted to say, has the internationally renowned psychic medium Sandie Byrne. Sandie, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Miriam. It's lovely to be here.
No problem at all. My gosh! Medium of the year 2020 to 2021. How did that come about? It's wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's a UK-based company, so they do awards worldwide, and they concentrate on like the smaller businesses like you and I would run. So people that aren't kind of acknowledged in bigger circles. So they go to all the smaller business, the sole traders, the ones that are working for themselves. But you have to be nominated. So just turns out some of my past clients nominated me, and it went from there.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That is wonderful. And I tell you, the motivation at a time like this during a pandemic to receive an award like that must be
amazing. Well, you know yourself, you kind of work away at home and you're online and everything, and you're wondering, gosh, am I making a difference? Is it working out? Are people happy? And then you get something like this and you think, okay, I'm supposed to be here.
I know. It's all in the cards, as they say.
100%, yeah.
Now you've got sandiebyrne.com.
I do.
And you have a lot of social media at the moment. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you organize that and how it works and where people can go?
Okay, so I suppose on social media, I'm much more active on my Facebook page. Okay, I think it's an Irish thing. Facebook is much more popular in Ireland, although I do have a presence on Twitter and Instagram, but you will find most of the information on my Facebook page, which is very active. And yeah, all my information is on sandiebyrne.com. You can access anything and even book online. So all my readings are online. So we're very much an online community now for the past 12 months. So I haven't seen anybody in person in so long or done a show or anything. So everyone is on a square screen these days, aren't they?
I know. Now, you're from a long line of psychic mediums on your mother's side, isn't that correct?
I sure am, yes. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she used to read tea leaves, although God rest her soul, she passed away very, very young at just 56. And her mother, my great-grandmother, Ellen Keating, she was actually a very well-known reader back from about the 1920s up to when she passed in the 70s. So she used to read palms. But back in the days before people had telephones in their houses, people used to queue up outside her house from 6 o'clock in the morning to get their palms read. So she'd wake up in the morning, there'd be a queue of people there. So she was very well known, and she learned to read from her mother, who learned to read from her mother. So it goes right back in that side of the family. And then my granddad's side of the family, they were also very spiritual. My granddad, there's a really funny story about my great granddad. He was, back in the day before we had undertakers, there was always someone from the village who prepared bodies to be laid out. But my granddad's name is O'Brien, and there's a tradition here, in Ireland, that anybody with an O in their name, that they will see the banshee. And he used to see the banshee, which is like an Irish spirit who would announce death. So he would see the banshee, and he was up one night and he couldn't sleep. And he was kind of pacing the floor, and he looked out the window and he saw the banshee leaving a neighbour's house. Now, when I say neighbour to Miriam, you'll understand it's like 4 fields away, but they're your nearest neighbour. But he saw the banshee leaving this gentleman's house. So he got himself ready onto his bicycle with his bag of cutrafugals, as we'd say, bits and pieces that he needs. And he was on his way to cycle down to the house when he met the priest, who was on his way up to get him. The priest would always come and pick him up to bring him down, but he actually knew before anybody else that this gentleman had passed.
Yeah. Oh, because he saw the banshee. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking like a banshee these days. I've grown out my grey hair.
Not. Your hair is beautiful. Will you stop?
Well, I tell you, but now this is the other side. Once you noticed that the gift was developing in yourself, how did you respond to that, as particularly as a child and a younger woman? Because I can understand how exciting it must be to know that you've got those gifts. But was it also limiting? Did it kind of curtail you in any way as a young woman? Things you might want to do, or?
No, not necessarily, because I don't ever remember a time where I didn't see spirit around.
Yeah.
So I was always able to see spirit. And so as a child, I just assumed everybody else could see them as well. And it was only when I was 7 years old, and as I say, my grandmother passed away at 56, and it was at her funeral. And, you know, I have five, well, I had, some of them are passed now, but I had 5 uncles who were like, you know, the world to me. They were all like big brothers to me. And to see 1 or 2 of them crying was a huge thing, you know, yourself.
Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
but why are they crying? Because Nanny's sitting over there beside Granddad, you know, because I could see her.
You could see her.
And then so many people just went, oh, like that, you know. So I crawled under the table and I stayed under there for the day. So it was only at that point that I realized that not everybody was seeing what I was seeing. So I just shut my mouth and I didn't talk about it anymore, you know.
And did you find that any of your family had tried to suss you out as a small child to see if you had the gift, or did they talk openly about theirs?
No, it was always talked openly about it. You know, when I used to say, you know, that so-and-so was here, or there was a man here, or whatever, my grandmother used to always say, oh, should tell him to sit down and have a cup of tea or whatever, you know. Or, you know, if you were just in
very
the room,
Irish too.
isn't it? And, you know, if you were in a room and the door would just open at like out of nowhere,
Yes.
my grandmother would always pull out the chair and say, come in and sit down and don't be outside looking in. You know?
Yeah, talk to them normally.
Yeah,
Talk
absolutely.
to them normally.
And that's
Yes.
what we always did. So there was never any difference. Now, my mother always says that when I was little, you know, if I talked about somebody being around, she'd put out photos, you know, she wouldn't say anything necessarily, but she might pop a photo on the mantelpiece in front of me of like my great granddad or something. Because from what I'd say, she'd know kind of who it would be. And then she'd put up the photo and I go, oh, that's the man, you know. So she never kind of asked me, she let me explain it in my own way. So and what I used to, she didn't tell me like for years, but when I was really small, you know, and I used to always talk about this boy. So there was this lady that used to bring this little boy into my bedroom with me, and she used to tuck him into bed beside me, and she used to sit there all night and watch the two of us sleep, and in the morning she'd take the boy away. And this lady stayed with me for years and years and years.
Wow.
Yeah, so she always tucked her little boy in beside me in the bed. And I still don't know who she is. She doesn't come to me anymore, just when I was a little girl. So there was always spirits around, but my mother just let me talk. She, you know, she never questioned it because she didn't want me to feel bad about it. And she felt if she questioned me, I'd stop talking about it. So she just let me talk. So here I am today, a talker.
I know. Well, and you see, this is very important, because it has struck me. I was only thinking about this morning when it came to just preparing for this interview. Sometimes you will meet people who are healers, and they're healers, and they're involved in spirit, and they may be psychic as well. They may not necessarily be mediums, but they're not always the best communicators with people.
No,
and it has often struck me, how important is that to you? Because it's fine if you're getting messages from spirit. You've got to be able to be good with language.
You absolutely do. Yeah.
You know, how do you value that?
What I say to people is that everybody is a medium. I don't do anything that anybody else can't do. Okay, that's for a start. Okay, it's not a special gift. I call it an ability rather than a gift, because it's an ability that everybody has. We just need to develop it. Okay, I liken it to singing. Okay, so all of us can sing. Some of us are obviously better at it than others, but we can take lessons to improve it. And that's why you see a lot of people attending, you know, specific colleges like the Arthur Findlay College, or there's a place in upstate New York as well.
I was just going to ask you about the Arthur Findlay College, because you went to the Lily Dale College. Didn't you go there as well in New York?
I always forget the name of that one. But can I come back to that in just 1 second? Because what I wanted to say is that, yes, while we all have the ability, not everybody is going to be able to work as a translator, because I call myself a translator. That's what a medium is. They're the medium, or the middle person between the spirit world and the earth world. So I tell people, think of a medium as a translator. They're communicating just in a different way. So I'm translating what they're saying. And not everybody is able to do that. And that's why every medium has to also develop their psychic side, because you have to read somebody when they come to you. Because if somebody comes to you and they're suicidal, or if they're on the verge of a breakdown or whatever, you have to read that person before you start giving them the information from spirit. because they might not be ready to take that.
Yes, and that's where people can get a little bit distrustful at times of mediums if they think that you're being read. Isn't that right? But in fact, if you look at it logically, you have to be very careful.
You absolutely do, because you could push somebody over an edge. Yeah. Mediumship is never a substitute for grief counselling. Never. And that's why I say to people, I would never read anybody for at least 3 months after somebody passes, because you have to deal with that grief. And even at that point, I'd say to them, you know, are you ready for it? Have you dealt with the grief? Do you understand that a medium reading is not going to bring them back or take away the pain? You know, it can help you move on. It can help you bring acceptance, but it is not grief counselling. So it's very important. So I suppose in answer to your question, yes, language is so important, especially as there's different kinds of mediums, you know, they're clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient. So whatever way you're getting the information from spirit, you have to translate that into language that the person can understand.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And it's very hard to put your feelings into words. So you have to have a lot of language. The other thing you have to have, oh, sorry, Miriam, I didn't mean to.
No worries. No, go ahead. I was just going to say, does it take a long time to trust those feelings, to actually learn how to discern what's me and what is spirit? Or is it really that clear cut for some people?
No, it takes a long time to trust what you're getting from spirit. Okay, it really does. If I can just, sorry, I wanted to just go back and say to people that you have to have a lot of life experience as well, in my opinion. Now, there's some mediums out there that have been working as mediums since they were children, and they're brilliant and they're fantastic. But sometimes we need a lot of reference points in our own minds. Okay, because I don't know a lot of stuff. Okay, so say for example, okay, once upon a time I had a parent here to connect with a son. The son had actually died in a diving incident and was winched out of the water, okay, by a helicopter. I had no reference in my mind for that. The only reference I had was parachuting with the parachute. So this is what I was saying. I said, I think there was some kind of parachuting accident. Because I said, I know I'm harnessed, I'm in the air, and I also knew I was wet, but I had no reference in my mind for diving or being winched out of the water. It's just nothing I've ever done or experienced. So the more we can get into our mind, even if it's from watching telly, Coronation Street or Home and Away or whatever soap operas we watch, we get a lot of reference points, and spirit use those reference points that we have in our mind to get across to us what they want to tell us. So the more life experience you have, the better the medium you will be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So when you were sensing harness and being wenched,
yes,
are you saying then the best thing to do is to literally trust that imagery and that sense coming through to you?
Yeah.
Rather than going to parachute or just literally stick with what you're getting. Is that what?
Exactly. You have to, I literally say to people, okay, I don't know what this means. I've never dived, you know, I've never parachuted. So I just said to him, I don't know what this means. I said, but I know I'm floating in the air. I'm harnessed. I'm wet, but I feel drunk. And that's the way I said it to him. I feel like I'm drunk, even though I don't drink alcohol. But I said, I feel like I'm drunk. I don't feel like I'm in my right mind. But he knew immediately what this was.
Meant.
He knew immediately.
So it must be quite difficult it must be, you know, it must be tempting to if you're a novice medium, to try and put a spin on it and say, oh, it must be parachuting. But you almost have to hold back and just trust what you're getting.
It's like there's a program on telly called Catchphrase, where you see a picture and you have to guess the phrase. And they say what you see, and that's exactly what mediumship is. It's saying what you're seeing. Now, I'm only human. I'm going to get it wrong. You know, it's very hard to leave the logical side of your brain outside of the door. You know, and just so you will try and interpret and you will try and make sense of it. But the best mediums will just say. And sometimes, you know, sometimes things just come out of your mouth and you didn't even think them through in your head first. You know, I had a lady come up to me in a supermarket one day, and apparently I'd read her a couple of years before. And, you know, I'm I have a sugar brain when it comes to remembering people. But she came up to me in the supermarket and she said, you know, you might not remember me, she said, but you read from my mother a couple of years ago, she said, and I came with my mother. And she said, you told me that day that someone in my family was very sick and that it would come across like a cold, and that this person would be, and apparently I said all this and I have no memory of it, but I told her that someone in the family would be prescribed 2 lots of antibiotics for a nasal infection. And I told her not to accept the 3rd lot of antibiotics because it wasn't a nasal infection, that she was to go straight to hospital with this person and get them checked. So she said one day life was just really busy. Her 17-year-old son came home from the doctor and said, he's given me a 3rd lot of antibiotics for my nose, ma'am. And she said, in that minute, she said, everything you told me came back to me. And she took him to hospital. He had a cancer. I can't remember the name of it. She told me it's a specific kind of cancer. Now, he died a year later, God love him, just after his 18th birthday.
Oh,
But she had an extra year with him that she wouldn't have had
yes.
she not go to hospital. So
Yeah.
you can't save somebody's life. But like, I would never like consciously predict something like that. So
No.
sometimes spirit literally use your body and
Sure.
you just speak, you know, and you've no control over it. So that can happen too. But if you think about it too much, you're going to put your own spin on it, and that's the rock I
Yeah.
suppose we perish on.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. So experience really comes into play there. It really does.
Yeah.
Can you just explain to people the difference? People who are watching now who don't realize that there's a difference between being a medium and being a psychic and
Yeah,
what they
and you
do.
know, even when I was younger, I didn't understand the difference. You know, I thought it was all the same, but they are actually quite different. So think of it this way: a psychic is someone who reads the energy of the living, and a medium is someone who reads the energy of the dead. Okay, so a psychic is the person that would read you, what's going on in life, what's coming up in the future.
Right.
So anybody that reads tarot cards, tea leaves, crystal balls, palms, all that kind of stuff is psychic work. And then the mediumship is literally passing on messages from people that have died. So connecting with the spirit world. So they are 2 very different things. And it's really important that people understand that, because, you know, people in the spirit world, people that die, they're the same people in spirit. They've lost this physical body, but they're the same personality, the same sense of humor. You know, they're the very same person. So if they weren't psychic in life, they don't become psychic just because they've died. They don't know what's coming up in your future. You know, if they weren't doctors in life, they're not doctors in spirit. They're not going to diagnose stuff for you. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, so the mediumship literally is about finding out that A, they're okay, they've moved on, they're not sick anymore, they've reunited with family. But it's also B, giving people evidence that there is actually a life after death.
Yes.
And that's the biggest part, because, and a lot of people don't think about it. People aren't going to believe in it, and that's okay. But, you know, for a lot of people, especially when they've lost somebody really close to them, they can lie awake at night, you know, worrying about them. Are they somewhere still sick? Are they stuck somewhere? There's so many stories about people being stuck in the earth world, you know, stuck on the earth plane and not progressing on. So people worry about this. And that's why I have on my website, you know, move beyond the grief. Okay, think about them in their new life. You know,
So
it
they're
takes
not
time.
stuck. They're not
There's
stuck.
no such thing. No, there's no such thing. Like, you know, I'm in my mid-40s now, and I've never, ever met a spirit who's been stuck here. Okay,
Yeah.
they can move on. We don't hold them back. You know, they go straight over to the next life, but they can visit between the 2.
I was just going to say, how do you explain visitation then? So they have the choice, because I know certainly where I am now, I mean, it was an incredible battlefield, and there are people who say that they have seen, you know, ghosts in the area after the Battle of the Boyne, you know,
Yeah.
and so from you don't believe then that there can be souls bound here in any way, that they can. It's choice, is it?
It's visitation. A lot of what we see when we go to battlegrounds and places like that, it's almost like a memory of someone being there. It's almost like their footprint is still there, and you can sense the devastation that went on there. My son, he's 13 now, just turned 13. But when he was about 8 years old, I took him to Craigenown. I actually have a short video on my YouTube page, but I took him to Craigenown, and we went on the first day of the season. So it was the first day it was open, so it was very quiet. So Craigenown, for those who haven't been there, it's like, it was where the first settlers in Ireland, I don't know if you've ever been there, Miriam.
Yes, I
Where the
have.
first settlers in Ireland lived, and it's actually very well preserved, all these like mud huts with straw roofs and stuff like that.
Yes, yes.
And you can go there. So what we did is we went into one of the houses and we sat down. We literally just sat on one of the wooden logs that they have there as benches. And I just let him feel. And I just said, do you feel anything? Is there anything that you feel that's different to what you felt when you were outside the house? And this was how I got him to connect with his spiritual side. Just taking him places where there's a lot of ancient footprints,
Yes.
and where he could sense different things. So battlegrounds, castles, anywhere historic, even, you know, antique furniture shops, you can pick up a lot there.
Yes.
You know, because you know, a lot of mediums will hold items, and when I started, I used to rely on holding items too. I don't so much anymore. Only really if I'm working maybe on a missing persons case, I do ask the family to bring something to me, something that would have belonged to the person, so I can get a better sense of them. But
when did you start down that road? Did that happen fairly naturally, that you were asked to become involved in doing that from time to time?
I've done several now, and yeah, it's always, I mean, I'm just not, I don't get in contact with people. I don't ring police with tips and stuff. I don't contact families and tell them I can find your loved one. You know, I'm just not that kind of person. If somebody wants something, they'll come to me.
Yes.
You know, because I think, you know, you can't encroach on someone's grief.
Yes.
So if they're ready, and, you know, I do say to them, the first thing I say is, if you're coming to me, there has to be some acceptance there that this person may be passed away. Are you ready for that? And sometimes they say, I'm not, and they won't come, you know, and that's okay. But you have to give people, you know, the possible outcomes, because there's just no point in having them disappointed, you know, when they get here.
Can we just go back for a moment to Arthur Findlay College,
Sure.
For example? When did you take that step to go over to London?
Okay, so, you know, I actually lived in London for 3 years when I was younger. I never heard of Arthur Findlay College. And it was some years later when I was here, I did sign up to do a course with a lady called TJ Higgs. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, Miriam. No. She was on the television. Herself and Colin Fry and Tony Stockwell did a program, Psychic Private Detectives or Psychic Private Eye, something like that.
I
so
remember.
She was the lady in that. So I did some training with her. She came over to Dublin to do the training, and she told me about Arthur Findlay. And, you know, I just decided that it was about a year or two after I heard about it, I decided I would go over, because I work very much on my own. And I feel very much, you know, because my grandmother isn't here, my great-grandmother isn't here, I would have had great support if I'd had either of those.
Yes.
So I just decided, you know what, I'd love to just kind of spend some time with like-minded people. So, and they call it Hogwarts. So you fly into Stansted Airport, and literally you can get a taxi. It's only like a 10-minute drive from the airport to the college. So you say in the taxi rank, you say, I want to go to Arthur Findlay. So, oh, Hogwarts, get in, you know. They know exactly where you're going. And you literally go there on a Saturday and you stay until the following Saturday. Everything is there. There's a bar there. They give you all your food. You know, it's residential. And, you know, you just do workshops from about 10 o'clock in the morning till like 10 o'clock at night. And it's just amazing.
And exhausting.
It's exhausting, yes. 100% it's exhausting. I'm quite well known in Arthur Findlay, I think, for my naps in the afternoon. But you'd have to, because you get a 2-hour lunch break. So sometimes I just have to go up and lie down where there's just no noise, you know. And it's a beautiful setting too. There's a beautiful old church beside it, a beautiful old village. So you can go for a nice long walk, weather permitting, obviously. Or sometimes I go there and I just don't leave the premises for the whole 7 days. But I just think that for people it's very, very important to know that you're not mad, okay, or that you're not schizophrenic. Because when I was younger, I thought I was schizophrenic. I didn't realize this whole mediumship thing was a thing. I thought I was schizophrenic. So that's why probably I kept silent for so long. And, you know, just to talk to other people about their experiences. And one thing that was really, really important to me, because I didn't start really, I mean, I did the odd reading for friends or friends of friends and stuff like that. But I didn't kind of really take that step into doing it publicly until I had something happen in my life. And when I went to Arthur Findlay and started meeting more and more people, I saw that there was a catalyst for everybody that brought them back to their spirituality. So many people had experienced it as younger humans, but you know, it was only when, I think when spirit decides you're ready to work, they'll push you in that direction, you know, and that's what happened with me. And I just, you know, things happened in my work. I hated where I was. So I ended up leaving and just starting this, and, you know, it just took off from there. So I think you'll always be pushed in the spiritual direction when you're ready to work.
When you're ready. Yes, there is a timing, isn't there?
For everything.
And Lilydale?
Lilydale in New York, I only spent a long weekend there, you know, because it's so far away. But I was actually working in Canada. I'd been invited over to Canada to do a demonstration and to work at a fair. And I did a demonstration in the Queen Elizabeth Exhibition Centre in Toronto.
Oh, lovely.
And I actually met a friend there. And so she said, come on, we'll go down to Lilydale. So we drove down to Lilydale there for the weekend. And we did, you know, some training with some very well-known mediums there. And it's just amazing. It's like, I said, to walk around there. Have you ever been there, Miriam?
No, I haven't. I've been to New York, but I haven't been to where you are.
Yeah, it's like upstate. It'd be like maybe 2 or 3 hours, I think, from New York City. But it's like walking around a Wild Western TV set, you know. It's, you know, it's all these wooden buildings with these signs hanging outside and everything, you know. So it's a lovely place. It's like, you know, whichever one you go to, it's like stepping out of this world into a different place. I call it a retreat. Okay. I mean, you're always learning something. You never know everything about mediumship or psychic work.
Yes.
There's always something to be learned.
And would you recommend this to a working medium as they go through the different decades, that they do this on a regular basis, at least tap into some retreat-like experience like this? That is, you know, obviously that people know is genuine and know is not just a marketing ploy, but that has good mediums, established mediums.
But I find that it helps me. I always come back feel rejuvenated, and I really feel it has improved my mediumship over the years without any doubt or question. You know, because you can work in isolation like this forever, and work the same way forever, but you learn new things with every new person that you meet. You know, so whether it's the teacher in the location or whether it's just somebody else. And I've met some very well-known mediums doing courses in both places. So a lot of people would. So they not only teach within their own area, but they learn as well. And it's really, really important. You know, because before I started doing this full time, I worked in third level education. And we used to talk about lifelong learning. And that doesn't just apply to universities or colleges. It applies to life in general. We always have something more to learn. We can always treat people nicer and with compassion. And you just need to be reminded of that sometimes.
Absolutely the case. I totally agree with you. I mean, I you know, my career was as a professional singer for years, but then I went into third level education as well. I was an educating Rita. I did my degrees very late, you know. But
I did as well. Yeah, I didn't go to college till I was 27.
Yeah, I think I was 33 when I first decided to go back. But I'm glad I went back later, because I probably would have chosen the wrong thing to read at university if I'd gone any younger. But then you get to a point, and I have found this happen to me as I hit my 50s. It's almost as though you know, spirit in its own way has actually stopped me in my tracks and said, you are not doing what you're talented at and what you really want to do, what you're passionate about doing. And you have to sometimes, I think you get to the halfway mark in life and you say, do I really want to be in a classroom? Is this, I know I'm doing it for money, etc., but really, do I look forward to doing this? What is it? Who am I? Who am I? You know?
Everyone has that turning point, or they used to call it a midlife crisis.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it's actually not so negative. Midlife crisis has that negative spin to it. It's a very pro-age thing, which is something that we were speaking about on the last episode with the lady called Siobhan Daniels. it's important to think in a pro-age way, and to also get in touch with your talents. Your talents heal you. But what I found happening was that because I'm clairsentient, but I haven't really developed it. What would you say if to the person who feels that pull, who feels that they've got to develop that side of them? Because I mean, I think I mentioned to you before, it has happened to me. It doesn't happen all the time, but I will walk into a building sometimes, and it's like being punched in the stomach. Yeah. Something wants me out. And I've had it happen to me a number of times over the years, and I know now not to run. To just kind of brazen it out and say, no, I'm not going. And sometimes, like, I remember walking into a theatre there 2 years ago, very close by, and I hadn't been in this theatre before, and they had opened a fourth venue in this particular centre. And I noticed the manager walked very quickly off in front of me, and I was kind of chasing after him. I had an adult student with me, a Spanish gentleman, and he was a wood specialist, and I wanted him to have a look at this place because there was wonderful wood in this particular venue. And anyway, this fourth venue was being shown to us. I was also looking for another place to run a show, so it had a dual purpose being there that day. And I remember looking at the heels of the manager as he opened these double doors into this building, into this room in the building. And he moved in very quickly. I moved in immediately behind him. As soon as I crossed the threshold, I was punched in the stomach, not by a real life person, but by an energy. Oh my God. And it wanted me out. And I immediately lost all sense I was confused for a moment, and my whole sense of vision, everything was affected. And I could feel this thing wanting me out. And I just, in my head, I said to it, no, I'm not leaving. You're not going to push me out. And he walked down towards a gable wall to the left of this long rectangular room. And I followed him. And I looked at the rooms off each side, and I could sense there was something coming from them. And as I got to the gable wall, I turned my back on it. And I just came out with the question, what's behind this wall? And he said, well, this used to be the prison, and these were the cells. This cell behind you had to be locked off. And I said, oh, why was that? And he said, because that's where, before they were hanged at the end of the room here, the priest used to hear confessions in this cell.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, but I did know that they wanted me out of there, as quickly as possible. And it took a couple of days to actually get back right again. It was that, strong an experience.
Yeah. People don't realize the way that it drains you.
It does.
Spirit. It really does. And I totally get what you're saying, because I had the very same experience in Nina jail, which is not far from me. And I took the kids there when they were younger, just for a day out. We went over, saw around the castle and the jail, and we just walked into one room. We'd walked down this long corridor, we were upstairs, walked into this room, and next thing I just started to vomit, and I ran out of the room. Yes. And the man came out and said, he just said to me, are you okay? Do you want to sit down and want a glass of water? And I said, no, it's okay. I said, it's just a really bad energy in that room. I said, I actually felt what's the word, like shock almost, when you're petrified. Yes. I said, and it just made me vomit. And he was like, he said, are you a medium? And I said, yeah. And he said, that's where they used to, that was where they went to wait to be hanged. So that was like the holding cell, if you like.
Really?
And they were always hung at the front of the jail. It
yes.
was a public thing back in the day, so they were hung at the front of the jail. So that's why it was upstairs, because it was right in front of where the room was across from where they were hung.
Oh my goodness!
They shoved out the window at the front of the jail. So yeah, you feel that negative energy, because that's what they were feeling in that room before they were executed.
Yeah,
so they knew their time was coming, and it's terror, it's fear. And for me, and obviously for you, I'm also clairsentient. I'm both clairvoyant and clairsentient, and I can explain those in a minute. But everything that you do as a medium comes from your life experience, okay? So as a teenager, I lost 2 family members within 10 weeks of each other. So one was my granddad, and he had been really sick with cancer and he passed. And then 10 weeks later, another family member, was only 31, was killed in a tragic accident. And I got very hung up on this accident. You know, when you lose somebody,
Yes.
very tragically like that. I was only just turned 15 years old. And 2 weeks after he passed, he came back and showed me what happened in this accident. And so because I had got very, I suppose, hung up on that, part of my mediumship is always feeling the first thing about how somebody died.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
that tends to be my first reference point, you know, are
Yes.
they male or female, and how did they die? And I feel it. I feel
Yes.
exactly how they felt. And hence, like you and I, we get that feeling of terror, you know, petrified, if you like. That's exactly what they were, wasn't it? You know, they were
Oh
petrified.
yeah, I immediately, as soon as I walked over the threshold and felt punched, the next thing I actually felt, which I didn't mention there, was as though my head was in a vice.
Yeah,
My
because it probably
my
was.
crown, the crown of my head was tight, tight, tight.
Yeah, they
But
were
for
probably.
someone now, for someone, Sandie, who, because on your website, when people go through, you see, so you've got the website, but you also have this other site, which is a mentoring site. So for
Okay.
anybody who actually might feel that they have underdeveloped clairvoyant, clairsentient gifts, I know there are 6 of them, aren't they? Aren't there?
Yes.
So, so what do you offer then? Can you explain the others? The
So
other,
I did. I started the mentorship, and I, you know, it's just, you know yourself, it's very hard to keep all websites and Facebook pages updated.
you're
Totally.
exhausted trying to juggle them all.
Exactly. So I'm trying to kind of close down the membership and bring it, or the mentorship, and bring it all into one website, because it's easier to control just one website. But basically, I did start last year a mentorship program. So whereby, you know, I would do 10 hours each month with somebody that was starting their business. Okay.
Yes.
So I went through that last year, and it was really successful. But obviously, you know, with the lockdown and everything, and the way the world has been, people are all over the place. But actually, next month in April, I am actually starting a new, just an 8-week program. So I've actually divided it down, because some people felt they weren't ready for the membership. They weren't ready to go straight into working. So I've actually spent the lockdown putting together new courses. So I've got like 3 levels of courses. So like a starter, a fundamental, an essential, and then a professional, you know, so they can build their way up to, if they want to work, they can. So they can just do the starter if they want to feel more in tune to the spirit world. If they want to go deeper into it and learn to understand what spirit world is trying to say to them, learn how to control the energy and stuff. So each course builds on the next one. So I'm starting my first 8-week course in April, so just 4 weeks from now. And then obviously I tend not to do anything for the summer, because people generally are busy in the summer. Then we'll do the second part, we'll start it in the autumn time, and just build up at people's own pace. Because
Yes.
people, you know, you can't rush somebody into it. The biggest part I find with helping somebody on their journey is, you know, figuring out if they're clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, clairgustient. You know, even I don't know all of them, but they're all the different ways, you know, this, of communicating. So the way I describe it is, in the same way that we as humans have different ways of communicating with each other, okay? So we've got voice and language, okay?
Yes.
We've got eye contact, we've got facial expression, hand gestures, I'm all about the hands.
Yes.
We've got body language. We've got different ways of making ourselves known to another person. And
Yes.
spirit are the same. They've got several different ways of giving us information.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what the clairs, I call them the clairs. That's what the clairs mean. So clair means clear.
Clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
clairvoyance, I think, is the one that's more commonly known. Oh, she's clairvoyant. You know, that's the way they talk about people. But voyance is seeing. So clairvoyance is clear seeing. So that's,
and that was the dominant one with you when you were a child.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. So I'd see them around. So clairvoyance is clear seeing. So clairsentience, like you and I. So clear senses or clear feeling. Okay. Yeah. So we feel the energy of spirit. You've got clairaudience. Clair is clear, audience is hearing. So you've got clear hearings. That's a medium that hears spirit. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that they can make themselves known. They can give us different tastes, different smells. That's the clairgaussians one. See, I don't even know them all by heart, but they're all the different ways. And I say to people, you're not going to know. We don't expect you to know what clair audience means, but it gives you a word you can Google. And you can increase your chances of getting a more accurate reading from any medium by matching the talents of the medium with the personality of your loved one in spirit.
And that's very important. I've seen you say this
Hugely.
before, and
Yeah.
I've heard you say it.
So
Think of the personality.
Exactly. Because as I said, you know, they have the same personality, you know this, they have the same personality in the spirit world that they had here. So if you have a great grandmother that was very closed personality wise, didn't talk to strangers in life, don't forget your medium is a stranger to this lady.
Yes.
Well, she's not going to open up and talk to strangers just because she's passed over, because she's still got the same personality. So going to a medium who can hear her, you know, that's not going to benefit you because your nan didn't talk to strangers. So going to somebody who can feel her energy or who can see her is going to benefit you more. So
Yes.
you always have to think of the personality of who you're looking to connect with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
you know,
do we need to give them time? For example, somebody passes over. I remember because I went to Sandie about 6 months ago. It's the first time I had actually gone for a proper reading to a medium. And of course, my father had passed in 2014, my mother in 2017. So do we need to give them time, if you like, to settle in, you know, and actually figure out ways to get through to us?
Of course. You know, this is the way I describe it. You know those machines for kids where the big claw comes down and picks up a teddy bear? You know those machines in the arcades? So if you imagine that one of those claws came down out of the sky, picked you up and dropped you in the middle of Siberia where nobody spoke English. Okay, you're not going to be able to communicate in any meaningful way with those people for several weeks or months, okay? Because you have to learn a language that's going, you know, to help you to communicate. And it's the same in spirit. So first of all, you know, people might be ill before they pass, okay? So when they arrive in the spirit world, their energy is already depleted. They're weak. You know, their soul is tired. So it takes them a while to build that energy back up. Or someone might pass very suddenly after an accident or whatever, okay? They are not depleted of energy, but they're in shock, you know? So trying to communicate with somebody immediately after they've passed, it's not going to serve you very well. As well as that, okay, we're here, we're grieving because we've lost them and we're feeling very sorry for ourselves. And I don't say that in any negative way. We do, I know myself. So we think of ourselves and what we need, but what about them? Okay, they've been pulled out of this world, away from you, from the rest of the family, from everyone they knew, maybe their work situation, the life they were living, the future they thought that they were going to have. They've lost everything, okay? So we have to give them time to grieve.
Yes.
So I say to people at least 3 months, okay? It may be 6 months, it may be 6 years before you come for a reading, but try and wait at least 3 months, okay? Even then, there's no guarantee. Now, that said, you know, I've had people who had appointments made to come for readings, and between making the appointment and coming for the reading, someone else has passed. And there are times when, yes, they've come through, even after 24 hours, you know, they've come through. But I wouldn't recommend it as a rule, okay?
And are they always met on the other side by family members?
Yeah.
So there is support.
Yeah, they're definitely, they get more support over there than we get here, would you believe? Okay, because they've got loads of people over there to help them.
Yes.
All their family members are so happy to see them, and you know, they shower them with love and everything. Now, I always recommend a book. It's called 7 Steps to Eternity by Stephen Turov, okay? So for the writers out there, you're going to hate this book because it's not the best written book you'll ever read, and you know, there's places where the grammar isn't fantastic. He's just a medium who wrote down his experience of connecting with a soldier who died in the Battle of the Somme.
Oh.
And he's, the way he described it to the medium was like he knew, you know, he knew there was a battle on, but he just woke up in a bed, so assumed, you know, that he'd been taken off the battlefield and bandaged up and everything. He didn't realize he'd passed immediately, you know. And even when his mother came over and joined him, she woke up in a hospital because they're going to give you a familiar environment because they don't want you to go into shock.
Right.
You know, so when something happens, you expect to wake up in a hospital. So she did. She woke up in the hospital. It was only after a few minutes and she realized that he was there with her that she realized, you know, what had actually happened. But it's always going to be a familiar environment. There's always going to be somebody there that you recognize, you know, to bring you over, I suppose.
And to those people who are naysayers, who would say, oh, but why do they have to represent themselves in corporal form if they're energy? And how is it that you can hear an actual accent or a voice if they don't need vocal cords anymore? I mean, where do you go as a medium? How does a medium respond to that?
Well, you know, some people, you're just, you know, if they don't believe, what's the saying that for some people, no evidence is necessary, and for some, no evidence is, I can't remember the rest of it, but that no
Is
evidence will
enough?
prove it to them. Exactly, thank you. I couldn't remember the last bit of it, but it's like that. So I say to them sometimes, and it, you know, when you've got someone who's clairaudient, yes, they don't have vocal cords or a voice, but they will use the memory of the voice they had here.
Yes.
So what you tend to hear is them calling the person's name, or their laugh is a common one, because some people have very distinctive laughs, and this is what we'll remember about them. So they'll use the memory of themselves here and then replay that for you. It's not exactly them saying it.
And I totally, I have experience of that too. I remember 2 days before my mother died, and like she was physically very well. 2 days before my mother died, my father came to me in a dream, and it was so vivid. And it was in a house we lived in Castleknock years ago, years and years ago in the 80s. And I'm in the dream and I'm saying, what am I doing back at this house? And I knock on the door. My mother opens the door and she says, he's in here. And she's in her 30s, you know. Yeah. And I walk in and I actually caught a glimpse of his head in the window before I walked in the front door. And I said, Dad? And I walked into the living room and I go over to him and I get down on he's in the chair, and I got down on my knees. I said, Dad, it's you. And I could feel the bones in his arms, and I could feel, and he said, Miriam, you've got to let your mother go. You've got to let your mother go. Oh, and I looked at him and I said, I'm not doing anything to hold her back, Daddy. And I'm thinking, why is he saying that very directly to me? You've got to let your mother go. And then I woke up like that, and I thought that was the most vivid dream. I could actually feel my father's arm. And the words. And I phoned my sister. It left such a mark on me. I phoned my sister within a couple of hours, who's not particularly into anything like this, you know. Yeah. And I said, you'll never believe the dream I've just had. And then when Mum passed a couple of days later and I had to phone my sister, she said, oh my God. And to think you had that dream 2 days ago. Yeah. But I could hear his voice. And it has happened. I'm sure it's happened to other people watching too, that you wake up out of a dream with a sudden sound or a bang or someone calling you. Yeah. Yeah. You know? And it's happened to me even with customers. I always remember, it's happened a couple of times, but I always remember one family that I had to connect with their dad, who had passed away quite suddenly. And their mother obviously was taking the passing very, very hard, you know, and they were all trying to be there for her. And so I had all the girls are always the first, I think, to step into to this world and, you know, find out. So after the girls had come for a reading, I had one of the brothers came for a reading, and, you know, he spoke to his dad, and he said, going away, he said, God, I feel so much better, you know, even decisions he was making about the family business and everything. So I think that was like a Wednesday or Thursday he'd been to see me, and I had a dream that night. And I said, you know, it was about the mother, and it was like the father had come back to tell me something. So I rang the following day and I said, look, I know you're going to think I'm crazy. Okay, you probably already think I'm a crackpot, but I said, your dad has asked me to tell you to be sure to spend the day with your mother on Saturday. And he started laughing. He said, you know, we were supposed to do something on Saturday, but he said, I cancelled because I have to do this. Something at work. And I said, no. I said, he said you're to spend the day with your mother on Saturday. And he said, I'll see what I can do. And he rang back the following week and he said, I cancelled work and I spent the day with my mum on Saturday. He said, we had a great day. She died in her sleep on Saturday night. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Oh my
There's
God.
Always someone around you know, them before they pass. Another lady, I read for her. Well, I was to read for her, but I could describe, there was about 6 relatives there, but not one of them were talking or saying a word. And I said, they're not talking, they just want you to know that they're around. And that poor lady passed a couple of weeks later. They were just all there for her.
Yeah.
There's always somebody waiting.
I do believe it.
If I just tell you one from my own experience, I lost an aunt, a most beloved aunt. I called her my London mam because I stayed with her when I was living in London. And she was only 61 when she passed. And I had tickets booked for me and my mother to go to see a medium on stage. But my mother had to go over to be with her sister, obviously, in London. So myself and my son went, and my son was only about 12, I think, at the time. And we were sitting in the second row, right in the center of the stage. And I had booked the tickets because the date was the day of my grandmother's anniversary, and she'd never come through in all the years she'd been gone. The lady that I said was 56. So this medium just walked out on stage, walked right over to the center, pointed to where we were, and she said, there's somebody sitting right here, she said, who has an anniversary today. And she said, this lady's with me, and her name is Mary, and she's waiting for Mary. And she said, John is with her, and Kevin is here as well. And John was my granddad, Mary was my grandmother, and Kevin was their son who died in the accident. And she said, they're all here to tell you that they're waiting for Mary, and you're not to worry about her. And that was on the 20th of March, and Mary passed on the 26th of March.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's always somebody.
But it's
never, ever, ever, ever worry about something.
I find that so comforting.
I do too.
It's so comforting.
Yeah,
you know,
Mary was in hospital. She was in hospital. She was sick, but we didn't think it was going to be that quick, you know. And it was just 6 days later she left. And I rang my mother after the show, and I just said, look, they're waiting for her. And my mother's like, no, it's not going to be for a while yet. But it turned out that it was.
Oh my goodness. Well, just at the end of the reading that you did for me, my grandmother came through. I won't expect, you have so many people, I won't expect you to remember this. Don't worry. Don't worry. But I'd had some difficulties with pains in my shoulders. It could be just my age, but I was really I have narrow shoulders, and they're my weakest point. And I was having real pain, particularly in the left one. And I didn't mention that to you, but my grandmother came through at the very end. She pushed through, and she said, she mentioned the pain in my shoulder. And she said something. She said, you said to me, what you related back to me is that she's also showing a bracelet that she used to wear. Have you still got that bracelet? And she wants you to wear it. I thought, bracelet? I have my grandmother's watches, but my grandmother never had any bracelets. And I was thinking ornate jewelry.
Yeah, of course.
2 days later, I'm at my grandmother's dresser in my bedroom here, and I hear bing, and this copper bracelet fell on the floor. And now this, I do remember her wearing with her watches, but it's a medical grade bracelet. And I said, oh my God, is that the bracelet that she meant? It must be. So I put it on anyway. And one of the things you were saying was that you said you could see it, you flick it on. You said that you could see that. And of course, that's what you do with this. So I put it on, and within a few days, the pain was starting to go down. So I then got myself some more copper bracelets with four magnets.
Yeah, they're much more modern now, aren't they? Yeah.
And I have no pain in my joints now. If I leave these bracelets off for a few days, they'll start to come back. And I do take them off at night. But that was my grandmother coming through to say, I can help you with the pain in your shoulders.
Does that mean it's like rheumatism or something? Isn't that what they wore those bracelets for?
Yeah, I know. Listen, I know when I'm getting old.
Oh, not at all. But you know what?
Listen, oh my God.
Our ancestors, don't we? We become
exactly.
them.
You know, but it's funny how they're looking after us. They are looking after us. They do know what's going on. Listen, I'm Sandie. I'm so delighted that you came on the program. Can you just tell everybody again how they can get in contact with you? So you've sandiebyrne.com.
Sandiebyrne.com is the easiest way. You can send me an email direct from the website, or if you just want to have a look at kind of what's going on and check out any upcoming events, of which there aren't any at the moment because we're still on a 5-kilometre lockdown here in Ireland. But
Yes.
I will be putting up over the next couple of days the details of the training that I have coming up. So either on my Facebook page, if you search for Sandie Byrne Medium on Facebook, or just sandiebyrne.com, you can get in touch with me through there.
And are your waiting lists for readings very long right now?
No, they're actually not, and because I actually closed my appointment book for a while in February because I was just so booked up and I was actually unwell. So I've literally just over the last week or two reopened the bookings. So it's not bad at the moment. So it's a really good time.
That's great.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody there who feels that they may need some mentoring, who may feel that they have, clairvoyance, clairsentience, any of the gifts, and that they've neglected them, they'll find your mentoring page on your website as well.
Or they can go, if they go into the book now section, you can book a free 10-minute consultation with me just to have a chat about, your past experience, what you're looking for, all that kind of stuff. So you can do that as well, and we can discuss it one-to-one.
That's wonderful. Listen, Sandie, I'm so grateful to you for coming on. You've been a wonderful guest on Writer's Block with Miriam, and I hope you'll come on again at some stage when you've got your book ready.
I'd love to. I know, and I really need to light a fire under my backside with that one. It's the thing that always gets pushed forward,
Exactly. I mean, you've got clients all over the world, haven't you?
Yeah.
Where do your main clients come from?
For the last while, I would say probably the United States.
United States, yeah.
Anywhere there's an Irish population, so I do get a lot from Australia and a lot from Dubai as well, or even Scandinavia. But of course, my Irish clients as well are always, always there and always busy as well.
Well,
so, yeah.
I'm sure they'll all see this. We'll promote it well, and it's great talking to you because you're so personable. And you make everybody feel so calm. It's one of the things that I noticed. I was terribly calm after that reading, and I've noticed people on your website as well at the testimonials saying, my God, I came away from that feeling so peaceful and calm. That's
what it's about, isn't it? That's what
it is indeed. Yeah, Sandie, thank you so much for being on Writer's Block.
Bye. Thank you.